Marlin has no idea where the program has set 0 or 0 point. So we need to auto home. So I'll click here, prepare, and auto home. And that will start the auto home sequence. So I want to show you something on our screen. Right now you see that Z has been moved up 10 millimeters. And the reason for that is because now it thinks it knows where 0 is. But I want to show you something. 0 is where the point of the probe touches the plate. And then when it pops back up, that's where it thinks 0 is between the end of the probe and when it's stowed. But the nozzle, back up under there, actually is higher than the probe. So when we're within that range of the probe being all the way down and all the way up, the nozzle needs to be somewhere in between there. And then we need to tell it where that is, or else it doesn't know where the nozzle end is. So we look at this, we've gone down or raised up 10 millimeters. Theoretically, if we lower it 10 millimeters, that's where the BLTouch right now thinks the end of the nozzle is. So we're going to test that and see if it's true. So I'll click here, go to prepare, and move axis, move Z, and I'm going to scroll down so that we're on 0.1 millimeters. And you'll notice that it says my Z is positive 10. It raised up 10 and stopped there because it thinks that when it goes back down to 0, it'll be at 0. So let's take a piece of paper and we're going to put that in there between the nozzle and the bed, and we're going to lower that by turning it to the left. And since I'm going 1/10 at a time, it's going to go pretty fast. So when I get down near 1, 1.5, still moves easily. So we'll go even further. We'll go down to 0.4 or 5, still moves easily. So I'm going to take it clear to 0 where the probe thinks the nozzle is, and we see that it's not touching the paper still. Remember how we need to adjust this is to lower the nozzle until it pinches the piece of paper barely, right? So we're going to continue turning Z in the negative direction, and I already have a pretty good idea, but you don't, so you'll need to do this pretty slow. We've gone 1 millimeter lower, 2 millimeters lower, paper still moving. And right there at 2.8. If I go to 2.9, it still moves barely, but it's pinching it enough it could maybe tear. So if I go up to 2.8, that moves pretty easy. 2.7's even a little better. 2.6 is too loose. So I think 2.8 is going to be the winner there. That still lets me move it barely. So that should be my new Z offset. I need to set the Z offset, or the probe Z offset, so that it knows that it needs to go an additional 2.8 millimeters lower than where the probe thinks 0 is. So to do that, we're going to push our button and get out of this menu. We'll go up to the next menu. We're going clear up out of all these menus to prepare. We just need to remember that minus 2.8 is our magic number. So there we are at our home screen. I'll click here and go to prepare, and I need to auto home again because at this point nobody knows where anything is. So again, it's auto-homed, it's stopped in the center of the bed, thinks it's 0, but on our screen again we see that it's gone up 10. We know that it needs to go down 12.8, because if we add 10 to 2.8 and then it goes down that much, that will put the nozzle right where we want it. So to store our new Z probe setting, I need to go change it. So I'll click there, go to prepare again, and we're going down to bed leveling this time, and we're going to the probe Z offset. And you'll notice I get a little graphic that says if I turn this way it's going to raise it, if I turn the other way it's going to lower it. So I'm going to turn the other way and I'm going to lower it 2.8. So right there. Then I'll push the button and I scroll down on that previous menu and go to store settings. Now nothing really happens, but if I bring you over here and you watch the BLTouch, you'll see that it just flashes red to blue, and that means that something happened. So with that set, those are stored. I need to come up here. It says bed leveling off, and I want to push that to turn it on, and then it's defaults to level the bed. So I'll go back to prepare, I'll go to auto home, and we'll auto home one more time. And this time, instead of Z at 10, we see that we have Z at 12.8, meaning after it homes and it goes to print the first layer, it will lower 12.8 millimeters, which should put the nozzle right at the correct position. So we need to prepare a file that we can print, which I've already done. I've inserted it on my SD card, and even though my USB cables are still connected, it's still on the USB card. So that's kind of cool because I can do it either wirelessly or SD. So I downloaded the Test X, and it is the one on here. So I'm going to start a print. Of course, at this point I would clean and spray the bed, and then we're ready to go. Now there is some code that I will show you in a couple of minutes that we have to add to our simplified 3D when we slice, so that it knows that we want to do BLTouch or auto bed leveling, and that will then become part of every program if we want it to. We can also set it so it doesn't. So I'm going to press here, go to print from SD card, and it's called bed leveling X 1 millimeter, so I'll click that, and now my bed will begin to heat up, and it will take us a few minutes before it's ready to print. So I'll bring you back when it's ready. Now that everything is about heated up, it should zero, go back to home, and then it'll begin the print, and we'll watch how well the first lines stick to the plate. It'll start out by doing a grid probe. You'll notice at each point Z changes. Shows us what the height was. So 7.78, 7.89. The back left corner is 7.71, 7.54, and 7.36. So you see we have some variation in our leveling on our bed. That's the beauty of this, is it can be crooked and still work. So at this point, it's going to home and then begin the print process. It's made the mesh of the bed and it knows where 0 is, so this should be pretty good print. Right now it's doing the skirt, and if I feel where it's done it, I can feel that it's pretty high. I'm checking to see if the squish is about right. And then it'll begin with the object, which is just a single layer print that I made in Inventor. And it looks over here like it's squished pretty nice. So after it does the first few lines, I want to check and see if it is squishing enough to overlap each other and make connecting prints. Otherwise, just a pile of spaghetti ready to happen when I pull it off the plate. So we'll give it a few rounds here, and then we'll double check and see if it looks like things are sticking like they should. As I look down on top of it, it looks like we're just about perfect as far as squish goes. Right here, it's not quite connecting. So I'll show you what we can do about that in a minute. But these top two layers look like they were about right. So right around this corner and down, we have space between our lines, which means our squish is not quite deep enough. So what we can do, even while it's going, is go to Control, Motion, Z Probe Offset, and right now we're at the 2.8 threshold. We're gonna drop that down just a little at a time. We'll go to 2.9 and see how that goes when we go around this next corner again. Okay, now that looks like it might be bleeding over and sticking a little better, but we'll let it go one more round and see if it does still. Usually when you have gaps between each line, it's because the squish isn't wide enough. That means we're not close enough to the bed. So I see we still have a gap there, so we're going to lower this even more. We'll go about 950 and see what that does for us. If the little gold feeder starts to pop and back up and back off, that means we've got it too close to the bed, most likely. It's trying to squirt out more plastic than it has time to, and we need to back it off again, back up to 2.8 or so. So we still have some light spaces between those, so I'm going to take that all the way to 3, and we'll try it one more time here. Alright, now it looks like these two are bleeding together again, which is about where we want it. So in my case, my Z probe offset should be -3, so 3 millimeters lower than what the probe thinks it should be. So I'm going to hit OK here, and after I turn off the print, I can reset my Z probe height, which should make it 13 instead of 12.8, and that should be about perfect for my printer. Now yours may vary, it might be higher or lower than that. Now I just need to go store it, so I'll go to store settings. And then I'll go auto home, and that should take it back home. And then I will peel some plastic off this, maybe. And then we'll try it again before everything cools down too much. Now once this starts, I want to have you do something. While that's heating up, I drew a picture of my bed, and it's going to probe in three different places. So I'm going to put a little dot for each one that it's going to probe. And as it probes, I'm going to watch my screen over here for Z height, and I'm going to write down the number that flashes up there so that I can tell where the high side and the low sides of my bed are, like which corners are high, which are low. You might want to label this front just to give yourself an orientation, and then we'll go ahead and watch our screen. I'll try to get this close enough you can see that and what I'm going to write here. So at each point I'm just going to write the height the bed shows me when it probes. We're almost there on our temperature. So the first probe will be in the middle of the bed to give it a reference point. After that, it'll go to each one of our individual points. So our first point is right now. It probes, and it said that one was 8.08. That other one is 8.12, 8.15, 7.76, 7.83, 7.93, 7.76, 7.59, and our last one is 7.41. Then it goes and rehomes itself, and it will begin to print. But I want you to look at this paper while it's doing that. So 8.15 is higher than 7.14. So remember how we said we could use these knobs to lower or raise the bed to get our bed a little closer to square before the probe does its thing? That may be what we need to do. So I spent a few minutes, more like an hour, readjusting the numbers and reprobing, and I finally came up with pretty close numbers. We're 7.9, 7.9, 7.7, so we're within 2/10 actually on each one of these. From 789 to 815 is probably our highest, so I could stand to drop that one just a little. But it gets it a lot closer, and as it prints, the print is a lot better, except over here in this corner where I have a greasy fingerprint that it popped up on. But the rest of it, the squish is just about perfect. It's blending in each other, connecting. So I think our level of -3 for our Z probe offset is about right. And it takes a little playing around, but this should give you the basic gist of how to do what we're trying to show you. Once you have this set so that you get a nice first layer print, you don't want to mess with your knobs again until you're able to go into Octoprint and maybe turn on the bed visualizer. I'm not sure we'll get to show you that just because we can't do it from our school network anyway, but it would be something to look up on YouTube. Just type in Octoprint bed visualizer. I like to go through the guy called Teaching Tech, and he has this as one of his favorite extensions that he installs, and it makes kind of a little graph that shows what the bed looks like and where it's out of kilter compared to the rest of it. So I'd recommend looking him up. I might post that just as a reference so you can go watch it. But once you have your layers set, you are ready. You can go ahead and send files either wirelessly or off an SD card. And with your bed leveled and the code in the file that tells it to level the bed, you're set to go. It'll just print super prints every time you print something.